Greetings, fellow RotoBallers. Happy holidays. You're in the Final Four, so let's pick our starts and sits for Week 16. Now, Dave, Christmas night, you've opened all the presents. You finally get home. One more presents under the tree, and it could be TB 45-12. These going up against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, Dave, it hasn't been pretty for the Buccaneers offense this season, but if I told you, since Week 2, Tom Brady is averaging 291 passing yards a game. He's going up against a Cardinals defense that has allowed 17 touchdowns to their past 8 quarterbacks, and 5 of those have posted 20-plus fantasy points against them. 4 multi-touchdown games for Tom Brady over 4 of his last 5 games. He's a start for me. If you're out Jalen Hurts, if you're hurting on Kyler Murray, you got to do TB12 Christmas night.
I love it. And he's just as old as Santa, Joey. Question for you, Joey. You know those Christmas commercials where like the guy steps outside and his wife got him a brand new car and it's got a little bow on it, you know? Okay.
Oh, I love those.
Yeah, this is not that car. This is Derek Carr, okay? And this guy will straight up ruin your Christmas if you start him, okay? In a do-or-die scenario, folks, you cannot trust the man who's headed into Pittsburgh to take on a Mike Tomlin defense with a possibility of snow showers and like -4 wind chills, okay? On top of that, this guy just completed a little over half his passes last week and has 6 interceptions in his last 4 games, okay? I'm asking Santa for anybody else.
Do you like the Derek Carr that I bought you? Dave, let's move over to tight ends. Now, this guy, he's the type of guy that you're about to leave the house, you're going to a Christmas party, and you realize you did not get a gift, and you rummage around and you find this old thing, and it's Pat Freiermuth, and you go, wait a second, last week he didn't catch any passes, but I have had him around for a little while. I guess I'll maybe use this as a present. He's going up against those Las Vegas Raiders this week. Now, look, they've allowed the 9th most fantasy points to tight ends this season. 8 different tight ends have posted 7+ fantasy points, and that has got to be the floor. Look, Pat Freiermuth, he got shut out last week, but he's got 10 games of at least 3 receptions, 5 games of at least 50+ receiving yards over his last 9 games. We're struggling here. He's got to bounce back. He's my start this week in Week 16.
He's on my naughty list, Joey, so we'll see about that, okay? I say tight ends, bah humbug, okay? But this is an easy one, okay? If he doesn't score a TD, this guy only gets you 3 catches for 30 to 40 yards. And Buffalo Bills ain't giving up a lot of TDs to opposing tight ends. It's Cole Kmet, okay? Taking on a top 4 defensive unit versus the position. And speaking of snow, yeah, this one could be absolutely brutal, folks.
55-mile-per-hour winds they're calling for, Dave, in that game.
Yeah,
he might be a tight end sit. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to say just get rid of him, okay? But one defense we should be hammering, Joey, during the holiday season is the Carolina Panthers. They've been bottom 10 versus opposing wide receivers, so I'm telling you to start the man who's been averaging 10 targets over his last 8 games. This dude is a reception machine. Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I'm also saying, if you're in a pinch, folks, DJ Shark. This guy's got you double-digit fantasy points in 2 out of his last 3 games since returning. I like how this sets up for all the Lions wideouts. Joey, the Lions are playing on a holiday. What could go wrong? Right?
Yeah, let's move over to our wide receiver sit. And you mentioned Ebenezer Scrooge earlier, and I'm telling you right now, Deshaun Watson has been the Scrooge to anyone that has Nick Chubb or Amari Cooper on their fantasy team. Amari Cooper, he's a sit against the New Orleans Saints in 3 games with Deshaun Watson under center, only 10 receptions for 140 yards, 0 touchdowns. He's also going up against the Saints defense that has not allowed more than 65+ receiving yards to an opposing wide receiver since Week 7, and they also have not allowed more than 13 fantasy points in that span. I don't see it with Amari Cooper. He's a sit for me in Week 16.
Like the call, Joey. And we're going to go over to running back, where I got to give you my running back start. Speaking of Scrooges, Joey, Alvin Kamara fits that bill, right? And I've been very stingy. Now, if you happen to make the playoffs, the semifinals with this guy, it's Christmas miracle, okay? He's been dogging your fantasy teams all year. But if there was ever a week, Joe, okay, it's this week. The Browns have given up 332 rush yards in just their last 2 games. Everybody eats on the ground versus them, okay? Expect Kamara to lead the way for the Saints.
And finally, let's go over to our running back sits. Now, these 2 guys, they're kind of like that Christmas present that you get that is that sweater with the duck on it from your grandparents. And sure, it's a part of your clothing team. And yeah, maybe you've been forced to wear them a couple of times this year, but that doesn't mean you should be wearing Deontay Foreman and Chuba Howard in a Final Four playoff matchup this week against Detroit. Now, Detroit, over the last since week 8, they have not allowed 10 plus fantasy points to a running back yet. They've only allowed 2 touchdowns to the running back position in that span. They're allowing the 8th fewest fantasy points to running backs this year. And Deontay Foreman, I just have to get it right. He's been like 100 yards on, 20 yards on, 100 yards, 20 yards. Are you really going to trust that right there? And then finally, Chuba Howard,
Chuba Hubbard.
31.
You're saying
Chuba Hubbard,
right?
excuse me. He's only got 31 carries in a 2-week span, but he isn't really putting up the yards. Dave, there's actually an article in Carolina News today that they think Laviska Shenault should be getting carries in the backfield. That's how bad it is. So I know you've been desperate. Maybe you've used him, but I would sit those 2 guys in week 16. And Dave, it's time to take a big holiday deep breath. Take a sip of that eggnog
because we're seeing our in-laws.
We're seeing the ghosts of hopefully our Christmas present and future with our 60-second recap. Here we go. Here are our starts and sits in week 16. Start them up. TB12 on Christmas night against the Arizona Cardinals. 291 passing yards over his last 14 games for Tom Brady. Start him up. Also start up Pat Freiermuth. Sure, no catches last week. We think that he bounces back with a really good matchup against the Raiders. Start Alvin Kamara. He's going to be getting the rock. Slowly but surely putting together another really productive season. Start him up. And then finally, the Lions wide receivers. They're cooking right now. And Amon-Ra St. Brown especially, he is a huge start in week 16.
Yeah, and you're leaving Cole in the following players' stockings. Everybody wants a car for Christmas, just not this one when he's playing in Pittsburgh in the snow, okay? Sit Derek Carr. Cole Kmet will have you screaming bah humbug versus the 4th toughest matchup for tight ends, the Bills, okay? Amari Cooper just isn't getting the target share with Watson under center. He can't be trusted. And at running back, 1 week it's Deontay Foreman, the next is Chuba Hubbard. What will it be this week? Probably Laviska Shenault. I say utter disappointment to all of them. Avoid them. And go grab some extra eggnog, folks. So like, subscribe, and happy holidays, everybody. Bye.